Peace, family. It is dawn with Dawning on Change, and we are back with Dwelling in My Soft Era. I am so pleased to announce this is my first guest of the season. He is a speaker, writer, spoken word artist, a phenomenal human being. He's such an inspiration. He and I met in 2019 at a writing workshop, and
Hmm.
I just have had such an appreciation for his light and his work. And he is called the Golden Child. But I know him as James Hester. Thank you so much, James, for joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me,
Of
man.
course, of course. So, for those of you that are new here, Dwelling in My Soft Era kind of came to me last year when I was actually in a season where softness was a challenge to maintain and to pursue, even. And I think that it's just a show of strength a lot of times when we are intentional about our gentleness. And it's so much power in that. And the reason that
Hmm.
I reach for James is because when I met him, he had now don't get it twisted, right? James is a powerful man. He's a strong man. But you had, because sometimes you gotta let folks know now. Uh, but
Yeah.
he had,
Mess around and
you
find
know,
out.
you know, Triple D for life. We ain't playing over here. Um, but James had such a gentleness to him and an air of just this security that he knew who he was and who he is, and just people like that are just authentically themselves and sitting and resting in their gentleness. I feel like are the make you the most comfortable around them. And so I was just really
Mm.
taken. I remember my mom was there, and we both took a liking to you.
Hmm.
And we had talked about you after the fact, and then some of the events that I facilitated, you graced the stage, and yeah. So how are you, James?
Man, I'm doing well. And first of all, I was caught up in that introduction. Like, who's she talking about? Like, man, I need to meet this person right here. But no, I'm excited, man. Like you said, it's been a long time coming. I love the energy. I feel like everything you said about me, I can put it back on you tenfold. There really is a reciprocation that goes on between just good energy. I think that's what has kept us connected. As much as we talked off air, we haven't gotten together as much as we wanted. It seems like every time we show up, it's like right back into pocket, so to speak. So I'm happy and excited to be here for the new year, and definitely look forward to having this conversation. It's one of those that I think is going to be very dynamic because typically you have this conversation in one
Come
gender,
on.
typically
Hmm.
women, and just to see how this dynamic is with men and women. And as a guy, like you said, that feel very confident in expressing my emotions, I'm very looking forward to how this conversation is going to culminate. So,
I love that. Well, again, thank you so much. So, I want to, something that I ask a lot of my guests is, what does softness mean to you? And how do you apply that to your life as of right now?
yeah, so that's a great question. And so I would like to answer that question to what it's not, right? Because there's a lot of
Come
misnomers
on.
out there. I think a lot of time, especially in the male community, black male community, when we hear the word softness, it's equated to
Hmm.
weakness, right? And that's atypical. That couldn't be so farther from the truth. To me, I think that softness is where I can actually operate and articulate human emotions. Is closely aligned to me with emotional intelligence. So what that means is whatever emotion that I feel, I'm quote unquote soft enough to internalize, interpret, and reciprocate what that emotion, the correct behavior and how I manage that
Hmm.
emotion. So whether that's happiness, joy, and all what we would call the positive emotion, but even if I'm sad, even if I'm angry, how can I be in a stable position to be able to articulate, okay, this is how I feel
Hmm.
based on this actual
Hmm.
thought, and this should be my reaction or action to the actual thought. So to me, that's why I look at with softness, and so that's something that I've had to kind of learn myself through counseling and things of that sort in my life. And so I apply that to my day to day life. You have those human emotions. Things
Yeah.
happen, but you have to take the time to take a step back, right? Identify not in a gender biased way. And that's the thing that
Right.
captures a lot of negativity in our society. I'm having a human
Hmm.
emotion, especially us as black guys. That is a human emotion, validated. Because we go off on that road of where we're soft and it now the ego and the pride is
Hmm.
in the way. That's a recipe for disaster, but I digress.
Hmm.
So normalize it. So anytime I deal with those ups and downs and anywhere in between, I literally talk to myself, that self talk, so to
Hmm.
speak. This is a human
Come on.
emotion. What thought came from this in actual emotion? Because a lot of time we don't have an emotion to an emotion. That's a whole nother story. What's the thought behind the emotion? If the thought is valid, okay, now I need to figure out a valid solution to this. And it takes a lot of self practice. Don't get me wrong, it takes a lot of falling down. By no means am I claiming that I'm perfect, but I think that emotional intelligence that I talked about earlier in going through those several processes allows you to become better and perform at a better level when it comes to that quote unquote softness.
I love that. One of the things that kept coming to mind whenever you were mentioning, like, I have to be soft enough to feel, um, so that way I can understand, came to me as sensitivity, right? And in our
Mm-hmm.
community, period, being sensitive, we're chastised as children, like, you're too sensitive, they're so sensitive, so sensitive. And especially our men,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And so then you say, okay, well, if this is a feminine emotion or even a shameful or an unnecessary emotion, then I can suppress it or not acknowledge it, and it's a recipe for disaster, truly, because I tell people, when you're sensitive, you can it sense, right? You're able to sense things, you're able to assess better, you're able to put pictures together, right? So that way you're able to better
Mm-hmm.
understand what it is that you're dealing with, and even what other people are dealing with. It gives you a greater sense of discernment.
Right. And here's the danger of that. And you mentioned the word, especially in our black male community, right? What is the opposite of soft? Hard. A lot of time we're taught from an early age that is the prerequisite
Yep.
of being a man. And so that's why I said I answered the question to get some of those misnomers out of there. We're taught, hey, be hard, be tough, hey, don't cry.
Hmm.
And so that softness is completely understood coming out the womb for some men, right? You know, even as a baby, hey, that baby boy fall down, hey, quit being
Yep.
soft. So it's automatically placed in a negative connotation from the beginning, and then you reward it in a negative sense in the world to where, hey, as a man, you have to be hard. Well, by the time you come into conversation of trying to deal and understand a woman's emotions, you're skewed.
You're
You
part
know
of
what I
it.
mean? And so that's why I say it takes a lot of self
Yeah.
practice because sometimes just subconsciously, especially with black, and even some black women, even in our culture, let's just kind
Yeah.
of open it up. We're taught to deal with that and be
Hmm.
hard is a badge of honor. When in all due respect, like you said, no, it's identifying that soft space to understand and articulate what it is that you're
Yeah.
going to.
That's beautiful. I think for me, one thing that I am, when I, excuse me, when I meet some people, have you ever met somebody and you're like, this person is so pure? Like, they have this almost childlike enthusiasm for life and this joy.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, like, especially if you observe them interacting with other people, people will take, well, maybe even sometimes attempt to take that for granted, or think that that's like a form of
Hmm.
naivety. And you are like, what a strong individual that you were able to preserve that joy all these years, that softness, that tenderness, after all of life's challenges. And here you are at your age, or your phase in life, and you have preserved this childlike joy and purity. And
Yeah, you really you.
oh,
I'm
you're
sorry. Go
good.
ahead. No, I was just about to say that you really have to be self aware. It takes the people around you. It also takes a faith or whatever that is that looks like
Hmm.
for you. Um, because it's so up under attack these days, and that's why I say you really have to be confident and be very intentional within the work you want to do within
Hmm.
yourself. Because the reality is, it does come off
Yep.
in the world as unbelievable, fake, as anything other than
Yep.
relevant or true. So you have to really have a mindset up to do the homework,
Hmm.
so to speak. A lot of times when we deal with that softness, like you said, we definitely don't resonate with us. But what's even worse is when we see people signing, like you said, oh, that person's weak, oh, that person's soft, or you take it for granted. Well, I can just
Hmm.
maneuver this way with that person without even understanding that's a genuine person. And like we talked about offline a moment ago, usually those are the people that are damaged even more so. And so guess what? They give up. They give in. And so it's almost like the unfortunate gift that keeps giving it, so to speak. And so it definitely takes an intentional act. That's the point that I'm getting to, and having some resolve for as understanding and being able to self-identify who
Right.
you are, and definitely aligning yourself with those type of
Yeah.
people.
I love that. I love that. What are some of the things that, you've shared some of your story with me, and the viewers that are coming in from your audience, I know, are familiar with your story. But what are some areas of your story where you had to really work to maintain? I don't want to say fight to maintain your softness, but work to preserve or maintain or even to create softness that had otherwise been diminished.
Yeah, no, and I think that is the appropriate word done is fight, right? Like, in all due respect, when you think of a fight, you think of a struggle, you think of up and down. There's no give and
Hmm.
defeat, right? So that word fight is appropriate. I think for me, just to go back and have some transparency in this forum, is that growing up in an emotionally abusive and physically abusive household early on taught me what not
Hmm.
to do. And I say that importantly, a lot of times when it comes to things like that within a family, of course, we're taught not to do it. We're taught that it's wrong, but it also should teach us a lesson for us who do we want
Hmm.
to be based on the damages that we've seen early on. And so, just coming from that background, there was always a desire for me to find that soft place just for
Hmm.
survival, in all honesty, just for understanding, right? Like if you're a little kid and child, you see these things going on and they're not atypical to your second community, school, and things of that sort. You want to know
Yeah.
why, right? Even to the point you start looking at self, right? So really looking for that softness wasn't anything, to be transparent,
Hmm.
intentional. Like I said, it was a fight. Hey, I know I don't
Hmm.
want to be that, so I have no choice but to find this,
Hmm.
right? And so that's what led me to writing. Again, I've always loved the arts, but it was never intentional to sit down to be a writer, to be a poet. This is my place where I express that softness. Even when I didn't understand, I could put it on
Yeah.
pen and paper. We're not even talking about the rhythmic
Hmm.
rhyming part of spoken word. We're just talking about
Right.
releasing, right? So that was my process, if you will, just seeing the hurt and pain that was inflicted to me. And I want to say this, and I don't want to stay on this point too long, but definitely the physical abuse, what you is what you can
Mm.
immediately feel. But in my maturation, what I've learned, the emotional abuse is far more
Mhm.
damaging. And I say that in all due respect. That's
Right.
not speaking to anybody's,
Mhm.
situation. But I found is that if I can be transparent, the wounds, the physical wounds will heal and leave scars. The emotional wounds not oftentimes heal on their own. So you never have the scar, you still
Mhm.
have the wound, right? So that's why when you said that word fight, it resonated with me to the core, so to speak, because a lot of times people think it's
Yeah.
intentional. Kind of like you said, when you see people, well, I went to counseling and I finally got it. No, sometimes it comes out that mud that we try to avoid, that fight, that
Mhm.
struggle part of it before we get in that promised land, so to speak. And um, I hope that answered your question, but that was my story in starting to fight before I even understood what that softness could heal the emotional and physical wounds that I had
Yeah.
been through.
So, excuse me, I love that you mentioned writing. You know, that's my
Mhm.
medium as well, my chosen
Yep. Yep.
aid.
Yep.
You know how I'm gonna give it up. Um, and I think that it's such a powerful medium because you're able to just say it, say whatever, write whatever. And sometimes you are in a
Mhm.
zone and nothing that you're writing is making sense. You're just getting it out there. And then a couple of sheets later, things are starting to make sense. And then you can
Yeah.
begin to formulate like, okay, well maybe this is where this stemmed from, or you're able to revisit or go back to those
Mhm.
nonsensical pages and say, oh okay, well this is where that was, or why I felt this way. And so I think that writing is a great medium because it offers reflection, um, within self. Whereas oftentimes, and this is still a beautiful way of to reflect, but oftentimes people are our reflectors, our relationships, whether they're romantic, friendships,
Mhm.
familial, professional, our relationships are often reflectors. So where we are like, oh, I didn't know that this was a trigger point for me until I was at work and this happened. Or I didn't know that I, struggled with this until my romantic partner was looking for that from me. Or I didn't, it's so many things, but I think that writing helps people to say, uh, hey, oh, this is me to you. I always say like love letters to myself, and I think that that's powerful.
So, and that's why I encourage people, like even in the spoken word world, most people think it's just entertainment, and it's a
Mhm.
place for that, right? But it really can be therapeutic, even when you think about what the word means as it relates to us as a
Right.
culture, right? Spoken word. It was spoken before we could
Come on.
actually write it. And that's how our ancestors was able to have a resolve. When you really think about it, there is power in just
Yep.
speaking that. So when you look at the word spoken word, it's ironic that a lot of times people think of words first, but no, the power was in
Mhm.
speaking it,
Yeah.
right? Because whether you're speaking it to yourself while you're writing, that's the power.
Mhm.
There's a release. And so all the way down through our
Yeah.
culture, not to get up
Mhm.
on a tangent, there's been power in that format, not even just being a poet or liking it as
Mhm.
an art. There's been power and an appreciation and a closeness within ourselves. And you said something that was so interesting far as how these things affect those second and third, so on and so forth layer of
Mhm.
communities. Well, what I realized is that when you go through
Mhm.
trauma, there is a DNA, if you will. It's almost like a stench that is woven to everything until you get that matter resolved, either managed or
Mhm.
cured. And so, even
Yeah.
unintentionally, like you said, loved ones, friends, you'll find that that DNA of that trauma is still woven into it, whether it's hiding behind it, whether it's taking it out on, and all these things, you're thinking that they're just genuine, but you're hiding and kind of masking little pieces of that trauma in all these places. And that's why when you get into it with your loved ones or friendships or relationships fail, you don't understand it because you don't realize you're depositing something that has a filthy stench in something good. And guess what that's going to do? It's going to contaminate
Mhm.
that, you know. So again, that's why I say it's very important in understanding that softness doesn't come with a gender, what it's not. Because I think a lot of people, like you said, in society, we take that so much off the table and we become just a
Yeah.
revolving door of trauma.
And I agree. I think it's because it's so easy to look at the person across from you and say, "Well, this is like a you thing. This is you have a problem, or you're
Yeah.
not all the way right."
Mhm.
Versus looking at it like, "Okay, what am I meant to learn in this relationship or in this situation?" And taking the ego out of it to say like, "Okay, this person is a
Mhm.
reflective." Is a reflection of me, not in the sense that they reflect what I do or mirror what I do, but they're showing me, right? Good, bad, and ugly, how I show up
Mhm.
when other people do things, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I think sometimes that's difficult for people um, to accept and understand. And I always say, I don't like to say like, oh, somebody made me angry. I always say, yes, they inspired me to anger.
That's a healthy way of
So I
looking at
say
it.
I was inspired to anger. Because I'm like, okay, what they did really make me angry, or is it something else? And we always say anger is a secondary emotion, right? So was it that I was disappointed? Did I set myself up? Did they just fall short? Was it, what was it? And then let me take the time to reflect and learn versus getting hung up and caught up on, something that needs to pass, something that I'm just supposed to learn from and move around, if that makes sense.
The ironic thing is, I was listening to you talking. I was talking to one of my clients, and she really didn't understand it because it was her first time hearing this. I think we would be amazed if we really understood how closely aligned anger and happiness
Mhm.
really is. Like we really think those are two polarized and opposite emotions. No, we express them differently. Like you said, when you take a little bit of
Yeah.
accountability. But the reality of they are very closely aligned. And you did something that I encourage people to always do. Find the thought first that validates the emotion. Because if there's not a thought there that validates the emotion, then guess what? Why am I
Mhm.
feeling this way? So now we can kind of bag out of that thing. And that's how anger and happiness is so closely aligned. We could even say that from a
Mhm.
positive standpoint. We just do it so matter of fact because we like
Mhm.
that feeling, right? But the reality, even if it's someone that we love, we're looking at the thought, why do I love them? Well, I love them because, oh, okay, so we gravitate
Mhm.
to it a lot quicker. And so, just from a fundamental standpoint, a lot of times people get so caught up in that anger, like you said, they justify it. Like
Mhm.
there's no thought into it, so they gravitate to it. No, they're both emotions that are
Yeah.
closely aligned. That if you put the thought to it, like they really do
Yeah.
become clear. And you think about how angry people can get, and then it's like it really can become clear thought that I have the right to not like
Right.
that, right? But that person has the right to do what they want to
Mhm.
do, right? Oh, you know what? Let me go on
Right.
about my
Right.
business,
Right.
so to speak.
Right.
So that goes into a little bit more of that emotional intelligence that has to be learned because we're not
Right.
born with this. And oftentimes we don't come out of communities that practice this as an
Yeah.
ideology. You know.
I really love that you said that. Say, okay, well, I I don't have, I have a right to feel how I feel, but let me take my power and my peace
Mhm.
and move around. Something I always tell people is that people don't know how to like righteously disagree or righteously be angry or upset with people. It's
Mhm.
kind of like this where, well, they hurt me or inspired me to anger, and now I've got to, the claws have to come out, and I just always think, is it worth it? Like, what if is this action that I'm about to give, right? Or how I'm about to show up, is it going to cause more harm than good, especially in situations where you love people? Because I think sometimes we get
Yeah.
so caught up on the hurt. When I always tell people, you spend long enough time with people, or you have people in your life long enough, there's going to be some disagreement, some moment of offense, some moment where somebody may overstep a boundary, intentional or not, right? There's going to be moments of that, and so you have to figure out how to navigate that. And something that I see this trend of, it's very sad, but it doesn't seem like a lot of friendships are making it because of that. Whereas you can say, hey, my friend hurt my feelings, is it necessary for me to hurt their feelings back? Or maybe I take a step back and I communicate those things to them, and then let's see where it goes. But I think it's kind of like, oh, you do this, and now I have to act quickly, act sharply, and just really come for you, when it's like, well, it's not necessary, and I don't think that people have a whole lot of discernment on when to fight, when to draw back, when to just establish a firm boundary. It's like the lines are all muddied, and I think a lot of people are very fight or flighty in as it relates to their relationships. Either they ghost because they don't want to deal with the conflict, or they're
Yeah,
over confrontational.
yeah. Well, there goes another emotion, right?
Mhm.
Hurt. And hurt has been one of those things that we have been taught grossly wrong. The reason why a lot of people do that because the opposite of hurt is
Mhm.
healing. And a lot of times we are mistakenly taught, even as a people,
Yep.
and it's amazing how a lot of this goes back to not just personal, gender, but even
Yep.
cultural. But I digress. We've been taught that the healing comes from the object
Come
that
on.
hurt us. And that's fundamentally not true. Nowhere in society. Think about anywhere you can get damage to your body. It is impossible the same entity that caused the damage. 2016, I ruptured my patella tendon. I had to go to a
Mhm.
doctor, not the basketball game. And I know that's an oversimplification. The basketball game didn't fix the hurt that it
Right.
caused. I had to own the process and identify where to
Yep.
go get the hurt. And I think that's the biggest mistake that we make, especially when it comes to close
Yep.
allies, close friends. So many people get up and uproot their life because we have been taught if you cause the pain done, the solution has to come
Right.
from you. Well, there we go again. It would be good if Don owned that
Mhm.
and kind of helped me out over here. But the reality of it is, I have to own any damage that happened to me sooner
Come
or
on.
later. And so it kind of goes back what I would tell you about my upbringing as a young black
Mhm.
man. I'm not going to lie. I learned an idea of emotion from my mother. So I took that little bit that I had to say, well, I know I don't
Mhm.
want to be that. And I realized early on, you
Yeah.
have to own this. Even if daddy never apologizes, which he did, may he rest in peace. He passed away with a wonderful relationship. But even if he didn't, it is my responsibility if I can identify the
Right.
hurt to say, okay, where if not here, where can I go and get that
Yeah.
hurt and pain? So I think that's a great point, but it goes back to what you're saying. A lot of people haven't identified that softness within themselves to forgive
Yeah. Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
So it's impossible for them when Don hurts me. Oh no, the solution has to come
Come
from
on.
the healing has to
Come
come
on.
from.
I feel like, I tell people this, like, your hurt or the pain may not have been your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. And I always use a super
Yes.
dramatic example of if somebody drives their car through your house, and they don't have any insurance, and they fall off the face of the earth, are you just going to, is that car just going to
Mhm.
stay there? Are you going, are you just going to leave the hole? You're just going to put a tarp on it? And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're leaving the car in the
Mhm.
house, just maybe even putting a tarp over and say, well, they never came back, or I'm waiting on them to come back and remedy this. When it's like, well, you have the means and the tools, or you could seek out the means and the tools, right? Um, to remedy this situation. And so I think that that's so powerful and an essential part of maintaining softness and gentleness is to say, okay, what of this is mine to remedy? What can I do? What of this doesn't belong to me? What have I been carrying? Maybe ideals or identity issues that were maybe put on me that are not really mine, and releasing those things, but really being able to identify and compartmentalize what's what and where it needs to go. I think is so essential. And I want to kind of come back to some of the mentions. Like I remember whenever I first started the series, I wanted to make sure that I interviewed Black men and Black women. I'm a girl's girl, okay?
Mhm.
I'm sure you know that. I love the girls now, but I wanted this
Mhm.
this space and this platform to be something where Black men could see themselves being represented and remembered and honored, as it relates to their experience. Um, and a way for us
Mhm.
to candidly speak about our positions. I remember we had a round table and we were at Pan African Connection. Honorable mention to Pan African
Mhm.
Connection, um, and we were just kind of talking about our different experiences as a Black woman and a Black man, and everybody there at the table. Everybody was chiming in, and it was so healthy. It was so rich
Yeah.
because we were talking about our experiences as it relates to us and the other. I don't want to say the opposite, but the other. And what we see this trend of now
Mhm.
with these podcasts or these platforms is like, it's about me, you're the cause of it, that's it. There's no accountability, there's no community thought behind it, there's no you know thought or mind to seek understanding from the other person's perspective or
Mhm.
just to honor their experience. And so that was something that was extremely, that's one of the reasons why I was like, oh yeah, James got to be on this one. He got to be on this one because, he understands.
Yeah, man. It's crazy. I wish, as a writer, you understand the appreciation of
Mm-hmm.
semantics, right? The appreciation of a word, the definition of a word, and podcasting is one of those words I rebrand, right? Because it has become a rally cry for a certain piece of
Come on.
garbage, and I'll say it out if I take the hit for it humbly. There's a certain piece of garbage out here to where there is gender
Yeah.
wars being had, and that's an attack of our enemy by
Yeah.
digress. And what's ironic, John, is that a couple of friends of mine, we sat around, and that's what caused us to create a podcast because we saw the fact that you see real topics, you see real
Come on.
trauma, you see real hurt, real pain, but you see these people who put themselves on platforms that don't do anything but pour salt in
Mm-hmm.
their wound by making it the solution
Come
about
on.
the gender. And that's so, I want to use a word, but that's so wrong, right? And so, even in our podcast, what we try to do, take those everyday conversations and take the gender bias
Yeah.
out of it. And it is refreshing because we were made, what happens, we get back to a place in which we were
Right.
created to understand
Mm-hmm.
each other, to be each other's yin and yang. Even if we agree or disagree, well, at least I now know Don's actions and
Right.
reactions. I may not agree with them, but I
Yeah.
understand better. And anytime you have
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, things just get
Yeah.
fundamentally better, right? But we put ourselves in, and it becomes such a selfish
Mm-hmm.
act. That's the thing about it. Again, we have all of this hurt and pain and anger within ourselves. You have the blind leading the blind,
Come on.
teaching each other wrong. And so what happens, Dan, we don't understand to separate the type of hurt
Yeah.
we're dealing. Now watch this. We skip over the process
Mm-hmm.
to get to true healing. But the reality is sometimes that process involves a different type of
Yeah.
hurt. It feels the same. And if we're not careful, we'll identify it as the same, but it's a
Mm.
different type of hurt. Again,
Come
rupture of my
on.
patella tendon in 2016. You talk about the pain, but one thing my doctor told me, he said, you're going to have to stay in a compression cast for a week before you. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to
Yeah.
stay in pain to
Come
get to
on.
my healing process.
Come on.
I don't want to
Come
preach
on.
or nothing, but
It's
it just
Sunday
feels
now.
good. We take a we want to. Could you imagine it? Because I didn't want to feel that pain
Yeah.
no more. I'm gonna skip over there and have the surgery now. Well, here's what the doctor told me: if we cut on your knee right now, it's so swollen you would
Yeah.
bleed to death.
Wow. Wow.
Does that sound familiar
Wow.
from an
Come on.
analogy standpoint? We do not realize that because we're trying to rush ourselves and we don't want that pain. No, that healing involves pain. No,
Yeah.
I've been hurt. So let me skip over this, but we wind up doing more damage than good
Yeah.
to ourselves, and we bleed out on the people around us. And so I think that's another conversation, maybe for another day, that we don't have, is that understand that even if Don hurt me and Don is a part of that healing process, it may hurt. Because, like you said, there are nuances in there, not to get off on a tangent, things that I don't know. There may be self revelation that, oh my goodness, I
Yeah.
thought about that. There were things that I learned about myself when you was talking about my soft era. There were things, even though my father was emotional abuse and physical abuse, but there were things I had learned about myself that, guess what? It still
Mm.
contaminated me. That's a whole different type of hurt. But guess what? That hurt is on the road of
Yeah.
your healing process. So we have to get back to normalizing, separate and identify the different types of hurt and what hurt is to embrace. Because I think we live in a society done that it becomes so. There are some things that I hear that sometimes just do this. A real man is, a real woman is, and if you notice, it always identifies
Yeah.
perfection. I, that's
Yeah.
not a reality. I
Come
don't
on.
care who you are. I don't care how good of a woman Don is, James. You're never
Come
gonna
on.
find perfect. But if you notice, a lot of time when you hear those conversations, a real man, well, it's usually the opposite
Yeah.
gender talking about what's real and up, but you never lived that life, felt that
Mhm.
life. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. And really, what that is a disguise. I tell people all the time. Unfortunately, we have gotten to a sad place to where we learn what love isn't
Come on.
before we learn what love is.
Mhm.
So that's why we lead out with the negative conversation. I'm not going to do A, B, and C. A, B, and C is probably the very things you need to be doing. Well, I'll never do C, D, E, F. That's probably the first thing you need to be doing. But the reason why you're saying that because it's a defense mechanism because you realize you need healing and you probably want
Yeah.
healing. I don't want the pain that
Mhm.
comes with the healing. No,
Yeah.
that's different. Take
Yeah.
that. Because if I didn't wait for that doctor for a week, I wouldn't be walking the way that I am at my age now in
Right.
2024. Sometimes you have to sit in that waiting period and go through a what I would call a productive hurt
Mhm.
that leads to a road of healing. And sometimes that's not necessarily a final destination. Sometimes that can just be
Right.
managing. That's why I learned about
Mhm.
myself today, Donna. Even at 45, definitely I came a long way from the things I told you
Mhm.
I've been through. I'm not healed. I managed that. I have some good days and bad days. You get a headache, you take an aspirin, you're healed. You get AIDS, you manage
Mhm.
that. You can't treat those
Mhm.
opposite. You do more harm than good. So there are some things that hey, I got to get up and put forth. I have a bad that I got to get up and do. But we have to get back to the point, kind of wrapping our minds to how do we get to that soft space and understanding that sometimes that realistically means embracing the hurt and pain
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
And if we embrace that instead of the way, we're just going to be in a vicious cycle to watch this. The hurt and pain that initially caused things is going to be set to the, and we're going to create our own wheel of hurt and pain, trying to avoid that hurt.
Right. Hmm.
Got me going this morning, this
I
afternoon.
said, baby, it's Sunday. He taking us to church now. I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad. I really like the analogy of, you injuring your knee and the doc say, baby, we can't do nothing with this right now. You gotta wait. And I was thinking the whole
Mm-hmm.
time about childbirth. And
Come through.
and I always say, like, we're always birthing something, whether it's physical, emotional, a business, an idea, our healing, whatever it is. But I thought about physical childbirth and I'll say my pregnancy with my twins. It was brutal. It really was. Not to scare nobody, but it was rough. And the only way through it was to do it. you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that last, my last maybe couple of weeks, I could hardly walk. I could hardly keep food down, but it was like, as this is a part of the process, I just have to make it through this. And, God willing, my twins will be born, they will be healthy, and this will pass. Um, and so I just kept thinking about just the evolution and the transformation of being with child and journeying through labor and
Mm-hmm.
that process. And I think that so much of what we experience internally is manifested physically. We just don't always see it like that because then we feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
oversimplified. When you said that, I was like, no, because it's not as complex as many of us make it seem. See, when you overcomplicate things, it becomes unattainable. But whenever you can apply it to daily principles, and daily happenings, you demystify it, and you say, oh, what, this is attainable. I can absolutely do this. And
Mhm.
then it's a different level of accountability that you're able to step into when you say, oh, I can do that for sure. Now I can do that, but I'm avoiding it. A lot of
Mhm.
times is what people do. And even we, I'm sure, have been there at some point or another in life. And I think that, like I say, simplifying it in that sense is so powerful, because it's like, no, baby, you have to. I always tell people, I don't know if it was a post that I had made a few months ago, and I had said, please, before you decide to have children, do some self-reflecting work and do what you need to do, so that way you can be the person that your children deserve, right? So I'm speaking from
Mhm.
experience. I'm a mother, okay, and I'm
Mhm.
even a bonus mother. And I think there was a young lady in the comments, and I don't think that she felt like I was oversimplifying it. So, well, it's not that easy.
Mm.
Some people, don't realize that until they have children, that they have, trauma to resolve. I said, I agree. My first of all, it was me encouraging you, not giving an order, but it was me
Right.
encouraging
Right.
you to reflect or to work on the things that you need to work on, right? Before you intentionally have children, or intentionally put yourself in a situation to have children. We know that not all babies is planned, but very rarely are they avoided. So if
Mhm.
we know that, again, speaking from experience, so I'm like, I think sometimes, like I say, people, when they feel like things are oversimplified because they're not ready to yet deal with that, then it's like, oh, well, it's not that easy. Well, nobody said it was. What I said is that it's doable,
Yeah.
and this is a testament because I've done it. It's a testament because the people in my ecosystem have done it and we're doing it. And it's a way to ensure that you are actively working, to create the best life for those that are coming after you, those that are standing on the side of you, and those that you encounter daily. And so I think sometimes also when we're in the process um, of just calling it like it is, and even in oversimplifying things, sometimes we are like, oh, well, I don't want anybody to feel any type of way. And what I had explained is that healing is not, y'all want to live, laugh, love to death. Like, y'all want that to just
Yeah.
be what it is, and that is a part of it. Living, laughing, and loving is definitely a part of healing, but a lot of it is uprooting. I don't know, I'm a urban farmer. I'm about to have to go and dig up some roots physically.
Mm.
You know what I mean? That's not the pretty process.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the process. It's a part of the process that I truly appreciate, because I can't wait to see my harvest, my beautiful soil, and my harvest to
Yeah.
come. But it's not the best part of the process, because I'm hunched over, I'm bent over, I'm squatting, I'm digging things up, dirt's flying everywhere. I got to, seeing rotten roots, smelling them. It's not the prettiest part of the process, but you want to skip it, like we said, and get to the flower or the fruit, and you haven't done what you need to do with your soil yet. It's not going to yield good fruit. It simply will not. You can't skip the
Ooh.
process. And so I think sometimes if I say, well, it sounds oversimplified, right? If you dig up the roots and you nurture the soil, you fertilize the soil, then you plant. After you plant, then you'll get a good fruit. You'll get a good harvest. Well, that's too simple. You make it sound easier than what it is. Well, no, I just told you what the process was. Now you do with that what you please, because
Yeah.
and so I thought it was powerful whenever you said, no, you ain't oversimplifying nothing. And I think sometimes, even in our softness, even in our soft era, we also have to understand there's a balance. You can't be too far left or too far right. You have to understand that maintaining things, and preserving anything is a balance of, there's a time to fight, there's a time to be a warrior and a protector, and then there's a time to fall back. It's a time to be taken care of. It's time to lie dormant. Some plants die or become dormant in the winter, and then they come back again in spring. You ain't even got to do nothing to them. Just have them in the optimal position to do what it is that they need to do.
See you all. This is why I love this gym called Done. It's I'm I'm trying not to take flight. If you see me hover, it is not a magical trick. There were so many jewels in that. And as I heard you talk, I wanted to sarcastically say, Don, you're asking people to take off their filters?
Come on.
And think about it. The first thing you have to do, and I just thought about this, you poured this into me. When you want to identify that soft area, that soft space, you have to take off that filter.
Come on.
See, that filter is a temporary fix. No, it's almost like, you want to run to the store, so you get a temporary fix. You put some on your head, you kind of dab your face. It's a temporary fix, right?
Hmm.
Like you didn't completely adorn yourself, it was a temporary fix.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when we go through that hurt or pain, that fight or flight mentality causes us to get a temporary fix.
Hmm.
And where do we find
Come
these
on.
filters? Social media and our entertainment. It gives me something to kind of lose myself. I don't have to
Yeah.
deal with
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
This thing right here, I don't have to deal with myself. This is not the real me in here. Oh, I could be Superman in this thing right here
Yeah.
and send it out to y'all, and y'all will never see this real thing because I
Yeah.
never dealt with it.
Right.
So the reality of it is, a lot of times, it's just like I told you about the compression cast I had on my leg. That was a temporary fix. It served its
Come
purpose,
on.
right? But that could not be a situation where I could walk around from 2016 to 2024
Right.
and say, well, I got compression cast on. No. Eventually, there has to be a soft landing in taking this filter off.
Right.
And we have to get down to like you said, I'm going to have to get down in that thing. Hey, and this is not going to feel good.
Yeah.
But we lose sight. And I always tell people, and I want to say this on this platform, never let anything or anyone make you give yourself a life
Come on.
sentence from happiness and joy.
All right now.
Never, I don't care how traumatic,
Come
I
on.
don't care who it is, what it is. Always remember that it does not have to be a life sentence
Come on.
away from happiness and joy.
Wow.
It can be a long process.
Wow.
It can be a long sentencing. It could be a delay.
Right.
It can stagnate, but it will never be
Mm.
a life sentence to where it's over. The only time that they tell me that's the case when they lay me in that ground.
Come on.
And I think a lot of time we get so defeated, and that's the purpose of that emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
We get so defeated, and I find myself guilty right now. I feel so bad right now.
Hmm.
You hurt you, oh my good, that I forget and suspend tomorrow, next week,
Mm.
next
Mm.
year.
Mm.
So every
Come
day, watch
on.
this. I wake up ball and chain.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: you said earlier that person could have changed. That person could have been just who they were and went on about their business.
Yeah.
Or that person could be where we never see that because
Bone.
every morning.
Hmm.
And this is what you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
This is what I start trying to justify. Why am I hurting myself?
Right.
You're the one in
Yeah.
yourself.
Yep. Yep. You're
It's no
committed
longer
to it.
nothing.
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
You're committed to every day putting this on, locking it up, going through the day, taking it every day.
You know. You know why? I say this all the time too. Oftentimes, people are afraid of who they are outside of their trauma identity. You don't know who you are
Yeah,
outside of trauma. You don't
it
know.
is such a new. It's almost like if someone came to me and said, "Your name is not James Hester."
Yeah.
It's literally that frightening.
Yeah.
Hey, been there.
Hmm.
I've known myself as this person with these fight or flight tactics,
Yeah.
with these filters, with these phobias and fears.
Yeah.
Who is this person without any of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never met him.
Yeah.
And Don, like we just said a while ago, some of this stuff come back from childhood. So it makes so much. We have to normalize. Like you said, it's not oversimplified. I I never knew
Mm.
a James Hester that could manage his emotions.
Mm. Mm. Come on.
And what I didn't realize, watch this, to not be like daddy, I'm going to overlove people. Oh,
Mm.
that's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because what if you overlove somebody who don't even love you?
Hmm.
A counselor one time told me, she said, James, you've become a passive male.
Mm.
And in no disrespect, I thought she was talking about an alternative lifestyle. I'm like, no, I like women. She said, no, you've you've identified with your emotions so much to where you've overcompensated what women typically do
Yeah.
without realizing that women can play you too.
Mm. Mm. Mind blown.
I cried. Like, what do
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, I thought I was loving her. Like, no, that's right, right. You're supposed to love. No, you hugging a cactus
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
because they could see your trauma
Mhm.
tactic better than you. Because in my mind, done. I know I won't be like daddy, right? Because
Right.
I ain't gonna be like him to my mother, to my sister. No,
Yeah.
no, that's self-medicating. That's still not the right
Yeah.
way. And so a lot of times we get to an impasse to where that new person minus the trauma is so new to us
Mhm.
that it's almost as if we're saying we are a different person with a different name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is the hardest thing for people to believe. Because notice when we say, I'm gonna be real,
Yeah.
your realness could be the very thing that's your detriment.
Mhm.
Have you ever thought about that? And this is what think about it, Don. This is what we give to each other.
Yeah.
If I do you wrong, done, well, I'm just being real. This just me.
Right.
That's
Right.
another
Right.
phrase. I'm just being me.
Right.
She just told you that that hurts her,
Yeah.
that she don't like. So we double down.
Yeah.
And this is why it's so important. I love this platform, like you said, that it really becomes a gender thing in identifying what this soft error in space really means.
Mhm.
Because there's so many misconceptions about it that, man, when you think about the thing that we've just limitedly talked about here,
Mhm.
we're getting further away from that. And we living in a society where people are getting so further away from it. And like we said, what's the opposite? Everyone's walking around hard.
Yeah.
Everybody's walking around like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
And because we can use these temporary filters to escape it,
Mhm.
the reality is, guess what? When you and I get off of this podcast,
Mhm.
we got to go back to reality, right?
Right.
And if we have not made up our mind to going back to your point of oversimplifying it, no, I got to make up my mind to at least try to practice some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing when people talk about oversimplifying, we're not saying be perfect. Don is speaking from experience, like you said. If I want a garden right now, who I'm gonna talk to? So she's speaking more matter of factly. As a novice, I got to at least get started
Yeah.
to appreciate where she's coming from. But if I just sit and just listen to words and want that quick fix,
Yeah.
I'll forever point the finger at Don.
Yeah. Mhm. Mm. A word. We getting into it.
Man, this is good, and it's a much needed conversation.
Yeah.
Seriously,
Yeah. It is. I think that what some of what I was talking about is I wanted to offer this platform and this space also for Black men to see other Black men doing the work, doing things that are a bit different, therapy, counseling, workshops, writing, things that, for whatever, well, we're not going to say for whatever because we understand it's by design, right? We understand that it's
hmm
been crafted by design, that these are not things we see often in our community, and we surely don't see them um, being, practiced by our men generally. Um, so I wanted this space to be where Black men are able to also join in on the conversation and say, well, yes, I had to go to therapy. Yes, I did that, and because of that, my life is moving along. I want them to also know and see tools. Everybody may not be able to go to therapy right now. Everybody may not be able to go to counseling right now. It may be a lack of resources, a lack of time, but there are things that you can begin to do to better get to know yourself and your position. um, I know what that looks like for women. What would you say recognizing those things is for a Black man?
man. First of all, let me say that thank you so much for allowing this space to address us as black men, and I'm very intentional with that. I've just had a conversation the other night about we don't have that space,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let me say that. Let me thank you on behalf of just being a black man and having a black son and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Black men, the first thing we have to do is detach from the misunderstanding the world tells us. We're not Superman, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We are not Superman. We are not um, a superhero. We're human.
Yeah.
And more important, we're imperfect humans. So it is okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. We cannot be everything to everybody. That's okay. No, there's only one that I know of that's everything to everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Come on.
It is okay to not be okay. I think that's the thing that we get so stopped up in with responsibilities and doing this. Even the definition of provider
Yeah.
does not mean that you're everything and can do everything to everybody. So we
Mm-hmm.
gotta again, we gotta talk about what it isn't
Yeah.
first. Unfortunately, we say what it is. It is okay, black men, to not be okay.
Yeah.
It is okay, those things. Because here's the biggest misconception about black men, typically in general.
Mm-hmm.
We talk, we feel, we express. Unfortunately, because there are not a places in society, we turn to the wrong people and things. But
Mm-hmm.
that is a human. And any
Yeah.
black man who's watching this, he gets that. He understands it. Now we're embarrassed to say, Don, that sometimes we turn to porn. Sometimes we turn to liquor. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
turn to alcohol. Sometimes we turn to work. Sometimes we turn to gambling. Sometimes we turn to prostitution. We are embarrassed to
Mm-hmm.
say, Don, hey, everything I can tell you, and I've devoted a lot of time to that to where that has become an issue.
Yeah.
But black men, it's okay to be honest with ourselves and saying, you know what, that's an unhealthy habit.
Yeah.
Hey, that's not the real solution. Hey, that's not the
Mm-hmm.
real basket I want to put this in. But I got to deal with that thing,
Yeah.
right? I have to deal with my struggle with pornography. I have to deal with that. And here's the second thing: anybody or anything that does not wrap their hands around your healing process
Mm.
needs to take a back seat in your life
Mm.
unequivocally.
Okay.
And I mean, mama, daddy, sister, cousin, friend, or Barack Obama. I won't call the other name. I don't care who it is. Because once you lay it down, if you don't identify your circle, what'll happen, you'll be a dog lapping up your own vomit
Mm.
to appease everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, how can I talk to a significant other about pornography and we're struggling in the bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
But I can't talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How can I be a son, a father to my son, and make sure that I don't pass down the emotional abuse? But I got to talk to him about it. So what I'll do.
Mm-hmm.
So on and so forth. So those two are the most important thing. And the reason why I say that passionately, you are because I made that mistake. When
Mm-hmm.
I went to college, oh man, my friends and my friends and this and whatnot,
Yeah.
right? So now I can tell myself everything. And there's a quote that I have: "Those who are everything to everybody becomes nothing to no one."
Yeah.
Oh, I can help you with your problem done.
Yeah.
But what it does, it allows me to watch this. It allows me to put mine
Mm-hmm.
right here.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does, that don't do nothing but elongates, and it allows you to become your own predator. And I
Yeah.
use that word because you now know what to do and have an idea. And you said something that was grand. You don't even have to have it figured out from A to Z, but you know I should head in that direction.
Yeah.
I and I know it's somewhere over there.
Right.
So you become a predator to a true part in yourself
Mm-hmm.
that is starving for healing, starving for that soft place, and you attack it just
Yeah.
like a predator. You suppress it
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, physically, and sometimes even intellectually.
Yeah.
Dumb myself down. Like you said, I'm done. You talking all crazy. No,
Yeah.
done is talking intellectually. Something you need to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage black men, be okay and not being okay.
Mm-hmm.
Push yourself off the table response. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
You're not going to abandon it. You're not going to abandon your kids, your family, thing. But you need to create some space to place what's not working, what's not going well. And number two, you need to look around you.
Yeah.
Don't have escape artists.
Mm.
Don't have yes men where you can hide these things in.
Yeah.
Have mentors in your life. Have true
Come
friends. Hey,
on.
Don, I need to talk to you.
Come on.
Hey, even within your mate, and I don't have a significant other, but I'm like, even within your mate, there needs to be a level of transparency.
Yeah.
Here's my truth.
Yeah.
And then that third component, and I wanted to do that, Don, because you said something important. A lot of times people think it's just plug into the counseling or the
Mm-hmm.
mentoring. It's not. Because if you haven't done the homework before plugging in, I tell a lot of clients that I turn down as a life coach, you can't plug into this if you haven't done the self homework yourself.
Yeah.
And so there is a process that we as black men have to do. We have to normalize being okay and normalize when it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
We have to make sure that we have a foundation and a circle that allows us to be who we really are,
Mm-hmm.
not who they always need us to be. And then with the outside help and assistance and counseling and being proactive and not looking at that as a negative number,
Yeah.
putting those things together and sticking to it. Remember, we said this process of healing comes with some hurt and pain.
Right.
There will be you find out about yourself that you will not like.
Yeah. Come on.
It doesn't make it the truth. I mean, it doesn't make it a lie because the truth takes no side, but you're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah.
You may find yourself, Don. I thought by the time I dealt with my father's hurt and pain he delivered that I would deal with that. Guess what? That had long stopped.
Yeah.
There were completely different issue that I had created within myself.
Mm.
That is no longer that.
Mm.
That is at an early age. That is repentant. That is a whole different person.
Yeah.
Goes back to like you said, your healing process doesn't belong to other people.
Yeah.
So when you do those three things, I think if you stay to it and you stick to it, we as black men, man, we'll find those spaces to make it a human thing instead of this thing that we pride ourselves on toting on our back that don't do nothing but just spew out on everybody and everything around us.
Right. Right. I think there has been so much of everything is hyper now. Like hyper, I don't really like using the term like toxic masculinity. I say it's hyper masculinity. And when you have like any hyperactivity in the body, it becomes a disease or a sickness. And
Mm,
so something that I see with black men, this is somebody that's coming, don't trip. I got my daddy. I'm a daddy. Yeah, that's my homie. You know what I mean? I have black sons. I have black cousins, black uncles, so I can say this. Right. It's something that you see as like almost like this hyper masculinity. Not necessarily what I'm saying within my family, but what we're constantly being exposed to. And like I say, if anything is hyperactive in the body, it's causing sickness.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I tell people when you have, and it was funny. I don't know if you remember this sister that was at the round table, and we were talking, and she was like, if you've ever been in the presence of like just a man, a masculine man, a loving man, a tender man. It's just it brings this level of security and comfort, not just for women, but for other men.
mm-hmm,
It's a I like that you mentioned provider. It has provider energy, not in the sense of every single thing is taken care of, but provider in the
mm-hmm,
sense of the way nature provides, right? Because when a woman is operating in her femininity, right? Optimal femininity. It's this level of nourishment and nurturing. And when a man is operating in his masculinity as God has called him to, it's this provider and this supportive energy, this warmness, right? And where it's like, oh yeah, he walk in the room, you already know what time it is, you know
mm-hmm,
you're comfortable. You don't feel that you need to shield certain things. I say when men, I'll give you this example, right? um
mm-hmm.
My dad is like this. My uncles, all of them are like this. My fiance is like this. When a man sees something like, oh, okay, there's a need there. Okay, he may not even bring it up. Next time he come around, the need will be addressed.
Yeah.
As best as he can with what he had, right? And that's when you see or a man is operating in his greater self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, as he's healing in his softness, his tenderness, because he's sensitive to the needs that he sees in himself and in others. See, it's difficult for you to meet the needs of other people when you haven't met the needs that you have internally yourself. So, like you say, I think a lot of men try to prove their masculinity or prove their manhood by showing up in these spaces for other people whenever their intentions are good, right? So your intentions with over loving were good, right? But you weren't meeting your
Mm-hmm.
immediate needs. So then it didn't manifest itself properly externally. So your intentions were pure, your intentions were beautiful. But child, what we intend sometime ain't what we get.
Right idea, wrong process.
There
I
you
tell
go.
people that all the time.
There
It's
you
it's
go.
very important to validate. I can have the right idea, but I can also do a lot of damage with trying to do that right idea with the wrong
Yeah.
process, right? And a lot of this, man, going back to what you said, a lot of time people probably will watch this and feel convicted and think that we're lashing out, we're talking against. Let's normalize this also. Some of this stuff we were just taught wrong. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, black men, that I was taught I was taught wrong.
Yeah.
A man is not supposed to put his hands on a woman. Well, we know that, but if you see that as a little child, James, you taught wrong,
Yeah.
right? Like when we make it bigger, it's kind of like you said. When it becomes hyper in our body, it becomes more of a reactive process
Yeah.
than a proactive process, right?
Right.
There you go again. Right idea, wrong process. I don't want to be like my daddy. Right idea, wrong process. So I'm just gonna overcompensate.
Hmm.
Well, no, don't.
Don't do
No, no, we don't give it to
that.
everybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody wear this part of you. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? But all these things, it's almost like we're learning on a job, and that's why I say we got to give ourselves grace to fail, to hurt,
Yeah.
to hurt from some of the mistakes we made because that's part of our process.
Right.
I'm thankful to me with my higher being. I believe in God that when He knows your heart, He will put certain people and things in place
Yeah.
so that even when you fail, it's going to be a little bit grace with it.
Right. Come
You know,
on.
it's almost like when the baby falls down, it hurts, but you're not just going to pick them back up and go about your business. They
Right.
actually continue trying because of the nurture that comes with it. So
Yeah.
when you was talking about, we live in this world, um, woman is the nurturer, man is the provider. Well, here's the beautiful secondary conversation
Come
we
on.
never have. You're teaching each other how and why you operate in that space. So
Yeah.
watch this. So that when love is reciprocated and there was ever a need for me to step in that place,
Yeah.
I identify how you identify with it.
Yeah.
So we gotta throw away this man versus woman. There may be a time I watch this. I need to be nurturing
Yeah.
toward my mate
Come on.
as a provider.
Come on.
There may be points in time where I may need to provide while being a nurturer. So it never would. That's an attack of the enemy
Yeah.
to do it against and anti and stir each other down. And
Hmm.
like you said, well, I got all this stuff to provide. Well, I got all this stuff to nurture. Well, I won't nurture if you won't provide. We're getting further away and we're teaching our children
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
We're hurting ourselves as a culture and we're going back. We're rewinding fast forward
Yeah.
backwards, if that makes sense.
Yep. Come
To
on.
where if you don't show up done as a perfect person with everything I want when I want it from my idea,
Yeah.
having never met you, having never been a woman,
Yep.
we're gonna lose, period.
Yeah.
So when we try to take out that middle step of hurt and pain, is to learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to bend my knee. 6 degrees, I don't
Come
know
on.
what 6 degrees is. Just to bend my knee six
Yeah.
degrees was success. then 18, then 24. I had to watch this. Done something I did my whole life.
Come on.
But in the latter part of 2016, when I went to physical therapy, you got to learn this again. And as black men, got to call us out, black men. I know how to do that, man. I'm good. I made that mistake, caused myself more harm than good, falling down. Where your mind tells you you know what you're doing, you roll off the couch, down goes Frazier.
Yeah.
Your mind has to suspend yourself that in this era I cannot do. And that's why people throw away the soft era, Don.
Yeah.
Because like we said earlier, it feels weak that I can't. No, you can't until you know how.
Right.
Efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
Right? So over a period of time, when I got tired of falling down and causing myself more hurt, I had to sit literally, Jane, you have a cast on your leg, you have 27 stitches inside and outside.
Yeah.
You are in this situation.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what I need to do to get out of that situation.
Right.
Like most people think that's matter of factly. So no, we're not oversimplifying. It is a real process in real time. It's just that in this conversation, in these short amount of words, it seems oversimplified. No, you have to really make up your mind, we as black men, that there are just some things that we cannot do effectively and efficiently simply because we were taught wrong.
Yeah.
The world punishes us. Society punishes. You're a bad man. If I get or you're a bad guy. I used to let that play with my head, done. If you were taught right, you can't do what you never was taught.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to having some type of normalcy to some of these failures that we hear and not taking offense when the opposite sex, somebody has done, tells them, hey, well, we can't. No, she's not knocking men. She's speaking that truth. And if you listen long enough, we can learn from each other. And that's how we can only completely reciprocate love toward each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, James, that on that note, on that note, that is a beautiful way to I feel like this is I'm going to get with you because I want us to do a part 2 to this.
Yeah.
I really think that it's definitely going to be necessary and needed. I want to thank you so much for this insight that you have brought to our audience today. I think that just the anointing that is over you and on your life, I'm truly thankful for, and I'm thankful that we met when we did, and that we've stayed in touch how we have, and I'm thankful for the reach. I know this is going to touch somebody because somebody needs to hear it. Because as you said, we need to be able to sit and talk about what we have gone through, what we have endured, but also listen and to say, well, how can we make this better? Because it's not, we are not enemies. And I think that we all need to remember we are human. And where there have been expectations for you to be superhuman or me to be superhuman, we can both agree that that's not necessary anymore. And ultimately, I think that's what this conversation has helped to uncover all the more is the human experience that should be reverenced and honored. And like I said, I feel like that's such a powerful note to end on.
Yeah, I thank you for this space. Thank you for this forum, man. It's much needed, and so I'm honored to be here, man. It's always a good thing, and I love your wisdom. Like I said, believe it or not, man, it definitely helps. And like we talked about earlier, man, definitely I feel that it's going to impact all who actually view this, and so I'm just humbled to be a part of it. Anything that I can do to advance this conversation, just let me know.
I sure will. So, ladies and gentlemen, my family, my beloveds, James is going to tell us where we can find him. I'm also going to have that information in the description and in the comments if there's any spillover. So that way you can make sure to be in touch with him, his projects, his wisdom, all of that. James, where can we find you?
Yeah. So if you I am a certified life coach. I did start my practice, I think, middle of last year. And so, if you go on Facebook, Grow From Your Roots, it has my page, all my contact information. Definitely, that is a great place. You can even inbox me because I do believe in privacy and confidentiality. But if there's any conversation, or if you just want to extend the conversation, like I said, you can definitely find me, James Hester, on all social media platforms, but mainly, for this capacity, Grow From Your Roots. I do have a page with all my contact information. Like I said, even if it's something that you want to just kind of inbox me and just get more information on, by all means. If it's something that I cannot help you to, I've been privileged to also be able to plug you into areas that's probably above my expertise. So don't think, in other words, that, hey, that can't be of use. If we can't help here, we can definitely plug you into places that can get you the help you need. Just reach out. That's the main thing.
There we go. Just reach out. So this
Hmm.
concludes our first episode of Dwelling in My Soft Era this season. There we go.
I'm
Hey,
trying.
I'm Don, your host. Thank you so much, James, the Golden Child, our life coach, writer, speaker, all the above. We thank you so much for gracing us with your love and your light. And until next time,
Thank you, guys. You have a great day.
you as well. Peace, baby.